Today is the World Day of Social Justice. Well, there's world, there's social justice, and there's day.
That's
how they follow each other, I don't know. World international justice for social, well, but there's social justice in that order, and that's our next conversation. Do we understand what social justice means, and how then does that also just come down into our day-to-day life? Annet Nerima from the Kenya Human Rights Commission is our guest, and she'll be telling us about that. Before we welcome her, what are we tracking from the newsroom? Our news fix.
Interesting developments as far as our politics is concerned. The re-entry of Raila Odinga into local politics seems to be shaking things a little bit. Also, a closed-door meeting with Rigathi Gachagua, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Eugene Wamalwa without a Jubilee Party representative is also shaking the table. So the Jubilee Party will today address the media on the current state of the nation. And of course, Jubilee Party Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni is on record saying that their choice for 2027 is former Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i.
Shaking the tree left and right.
Nice and early.
Jubilee should be a democratic party, and you'd expect that that candidate is picked by the members,
right,
not by the few leaders of Jubilee who would come out.
How do we know that members are not included in that?
Because
have
they haven't
you heard
had
anything
their
like a national
primaries.
delegates conference?
Yeah, they haven't.
Have you heard any primaries for Jubilee taking place?
Maybe there's quiet influence. Nothing.
Anyway,
We are
Nerima,
an example of a democracy. Anyway.
Karibu sana. Welcome to Fixing the Nation.
Thank you so much.
Here we do it one conversation at a time. This is our final conversation for today, and it's important because we're looking at the calendar event on the day, and today is that day for social justice. How do we say it? World Social Justice Day? World Day?
The World Social Justice Day.
I was right.
Don't overthink it. Like, you're okay. You're good.
Okay. The World Social Justice Day. Before we get into that conversation, Janet will give us a quotable quote, and she'll ask us who said that. Just listen. She'll give us a couple of quotes. Hints.
A couple of hints.
And then she'll give us the quote and ask us who said that.
So this hint, as I've used in the previous hours, is a Nigerian author of great influence with a white head of hair, an afro. Think West African, Nigerian author with an afro. As you're mulling over who it is, this is the quote: "Books and all forms of writing are terror to those who wish to suppress the truth." Annette, who said that?
Professor Wole Soyinka.
There we go.
How did you know?
What gave it away?
I've been in this struggle for long. Those are the people that motivate us. So
That's a brilliant answer, that you've been in the struggle, and the people who are able to provide context through storytelling are the people you listen to. World Social Justice Day, there's a lot of people who may not know how to define social justice and why it's so important to every fabric of our society. What is social justice?
So social justice is about equity and fairness. And in simple terms, it's basically aimed at achieving a society where everyone enjoys human rights, and at the end of the day, we see that the same is upheld and also respected. Yeah.
Big mandate, sorry.
Big mandate, yeah.
That's a big mandate, because justice, even before you add the word social, justice is, like we were speaking to Nancy, retired Honorable Nancy Baraza, she said, you know what, justice delayed, justice denied. We often hear that. But there's so many aspects to it. When you think of it from an everyday perspective, and I call myself a social justice warrior, for example, what does that mean? I want to take it down to the little things that we can do to be social justice warriors in our lives.
I think maybe in answering the same, I'll just provide a context. Because we have indicated that this is a day that is commemorated every year.
Right.
And I think when I say commemoration, it's very deliberate. There are people who may want to say they're marking it, celebrating it, but for me, it's commemorating, because it's allowing us to demand for the respect of some of these human rights, but also to reflect on where we are, considering the country that we're existing in at the moment. And so when this day was established or created, it was all about creating awareness on the need to combat social injustices, and some of them are things to do with poverty, human rights violation, gender inequality, exclusion, or if you like, we commonly refer to it as discrimination, things like that. And we see each passing day, when you talk about social injustices, they manifest in very many aspects: the economic aspect of it, the social aspect of it, the political aspect of it. Like right now, when you talk about protest, they're non-existent present in the country, yet they're provided for in the law. When you talk about the economic rights, for instance, we've just been talking about SHA and access to services, the health service particularly, and many are being denied. You know, much as the government would want to paint it that they're doing much, there are many losing their lives. There are many who are not accessing this right that is enshrined in the Constitution. So that's an injustice. Talk about education, for instance, the new education funding model. It was meant, if not challenged, to lead to discrimination of many, especially in the low-income cadre, from accessing higher education. Even the CBC itself, I mean, we are saying we are making strides, but many have been left. So we are seeing inequality between the haves and have-nots in terms of accessing this. So the injustices are very broad and manifest in very many ways.
Yeah, it feels like we're going through a season of just an onslaught of violation on human rights, whether it's protesters being tear-gassed for peacefully protesting. I was there on December 10th at Jivanji, and we had just started marching. Nobody had chanted, no sooner. And I remember thinking, this must be, I don't know, a firework or something. Nobody could have guessed that you're tear-gassing people who've not, the abductions, right? How do you play a role in just upholding the rights of Kenyans? Because I know it's a big task, right? So that's probably on your in-tray every day. What are you facing each day, and how are you trying to play this role in, number one, educating Kenyans that this is a violation, and number two, what are you doing as an organization to just push back on these violations?
Yeah, as an organization, one of the things that we ground our work on is the Constitution. And so the rule of law is something that we are big on to push that happens in the country. So much as we say we have a progressive Constitution, I think the 2 years of this current regime have really proven otherwise. You know, the Constitution has been put to a test. And yeah, so we have these rights that many know of now. I mean, because the Constitution is about 14 years old. That's a teenager. So I would say 90% of Kenyans know about these rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. The challenge is, are they being implemented? Are they being enforced by the duty bearers in different sectors? And a good example would be the security sector, for instance. We have seen that there's the right on this side where individuals, for instance, when you talk about the finance bill of 2024, people knew that anyway, we are against some of the punitive measures in the finance bill. And so for us to be able to demonstrate this, how about we claim back our power, the sovereign power, go to the streets, because the Constitution allows us, so that way we are able to express, that the parliamentarians or members of parliament can listen to us. But unfortunately, what happened? That right was violated, including many disappeared, many killed in the process, you know, many injured in the process. So you see, those rights are being violated. And as an institution, again, as I've said, the Constitution is what backs us. So we have been able to go to court. And I think this country, or the leadership of this country, the language right now that it hears is court. Much as I know the effecting of some of these court decisions is also proving to be a challenge, but at least we have been able to see our strides. We have been able to see impact with the use of court. So as Kenya Human Rights Commission, we are big in terms of public interest litigation, because we believe at the moment this is one of the biggest strategy in terms of combating some of these injustices that are...
To kind of see that in action. The problem again was, are they taken seriously? How do we enforce some of these things, especially for young people who are like, I do know my rights. I do know what I'm supposed to be doing. I know what I'm not supposed to be doing. I know where, I know my boundaries. I also know what the law says about what I'm allowed to do. Anyway, long story short, how do we make sure that we can exercise those rights in a time when it feels like it's getting excessively harder without being punished for it, so to say. Yeah, because we want to, but it's getting harder and harder. No one wants to be in the back of the Subaru.
I may not have that answer directly, but I think the question is, what's pushing us as Kenyans? It's because we, in one way or the other, are affected. For instance, I'll just go back to the finance bill. If you pay taxes in this country, if you earn a salary, of course you are affected. And so you may protest without even saying it. And so I think for me, it's come a time where the power of the people will take the day. And I know in the process we will lose many, but then we should not be deterred. Why? Because what ended up silencing, I would say, the protest, the Gen Z protest, it's the abductions, because many feared, you know, I can be abducted, as you've said, you don't want to be behind the Subaru boot, you know, and all that. But I think for me, I would say no relenting. In the process, people may be injured or something, but all I would also just put out there to the government, but they really need to allow people to exercise their rights. I mean, we have the freedom of speech, freedom of expression and all that. That just needs to be allowed. But unfortunately, when you look at the way the security apparatus are being engaged, particularly by the executive, it's meant to deter. It's meant to deter, which is wrong, because basically that's bad governance, in my view. You are not allowing people to express themselves. Yet we've come a long way. I mean, we have a constitution that is 14 years old. We should be able to enjoy this right. So really, I don't have a right answer to it. It all depends with where you are. But for me, I would say this is a struggle that is not about to stop. Right. I mean, the government should know that its failure to address some of these human rights issues in the country, and the silence that they may think they're enjoying right now does not mean that all is well. It's not well at all.
Right. So the peace is not like the absence of chaos, right? But maybe I'll put it to the entire table, because I'm trying to think of how do we then push back, because you've said they need to allow, but then I think about it and I'm like, they won't genuinely. So it's for us to perhaps take, when you say power is not given, it's taken. How do we...
How do we take back our power?
Yeah, how do we take back our power?
I know we started taking it back. The Constitution turns 15. Is it 15?
Yeah, this year,
2025.
Yep.
Okay, wow. Yeah. That's a big teenager. Maybe it's litigation. First of all, I'm wondering if there's any recent litigation cases that you've been dealing with that are kind of speaking to what Mariam is saying. Because I think there's also need to flex muscle and say this is a violation. Right? And sometimes I think I'm dreaming when I see the affront to the Constitution and the violation of what the Constitution says. So a little bit leaning to what Mariam is asking of, how do we take that power back in terms of what are those avenues? We know that people have been protesting, maybe joining local social justice movements could be an idea. So how do we take back that power? Just what are those avenues to really flex that muscle and build that community and push back?
Okay, there are many angles to it, for instance, and I like the fact that you've talked about the social justice movements, which are really big in this country right now, and in terms of pushing back, in terms of demanding that the government addresses injustices, they've really been big. And I think as Kenyans, we're affected in one way or the other, and so those movements would be a good starting point in our community, because they exist across the country, to be able to just organize and find a place, a community where you together you are motivated to push for a particular cause. I say this because this, as I've said, it's a struggle and it weighs down an individual. Some of us have been here like long, and I think I remember last year was the hardest. You are running left, right, and center. Before you're done with this, something else has come up, and you're wondering, do these people ever sleep? You know, and it's not sleeping like an ordinary sleep, but they spend day and night thinking of
new ways to oppress.
You know, it's really concerning. And so I think the power of numbers through organizing based on interest as well, because there are people whose maybe forte is not about maybe politics, but their interest could be in the social economic rights. That would be a way, because you see, once you are in a particular group that advances your interest, sustainability of the same is almost guaranteed. I think I would also want to point to the bit on the organizing and give a good example. As Kenya Human Rights, we've worked with these stateless communities. So these are people we still have a few of them, but many have already now attained their citizenship. And the reason as to why it was easy to work with them and push for attainment of these their citizenship is because they were already organized. They had a common goal. What they wanted is to be
just
recognized
as Kenyans.
As Kenyans. Yeah. So organizing is, I think, something that is very, very critical in terms of just pushing or advocating for good governance and human rights.
I think, just to answer your question, Janet, I'll attempt to do it. How do we take back power, right? I remember Badgal Mili, telo ikao, telo okminato, right? You will not be given, you will have to take it. Kenyans took it in August 2010, when we gave unto ourselves a constitution, where immediately the beginning of this constitution, first of all, the preamble says, we, the people of Kenya, desirers and all those things, give unto ourselves this constitution. And then Article 1 talks about all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya. So where is the power?
With the people of Kenya.
With the people. So how do we take it back? We took it. We have it. The question is, let's exercise our power. Right? I think if we operate from the notion that power is elsewhere, and now we are going for it, there will be that fatigue, there'll be the fear of, okay, now are they going to give me the power? But if you wake up knowing that it is there, all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised directly, or, you know, then the next thing is just exercise it.
That's important.
Even just waking up and saying, you know, I'm just asking a question. I am sending a video to Fixing the Nation and saying this is what I'm doing. That's actually exercising your sovereignty. Just saying I'm looking at what the CS for housing has said and I just don't get it. That's exercising your sovereignty. Just coming together and saying, you know what, people, we the Makonde have lived in this country for so many years and our children don't have IDs. How can we get ourselves to get IDs? That is exercising sovereign power. Then you'll get people like the Kenya Human Rights Commission to support you into exercising that power. Now, of course, at that time, the Makonde were not, because they were not citizens of Kenya. But after now they became citizens of Kenya, it's about wake up and live like you're the sovereign.
So don't move from a place of disempowerment, because I think that's been weaponized. That's how you're almost controlled to feel that you don't have the power. I like what Matthews Ndubi on YouTube has said. Change often begins quietly and grows as awareness increases. It doesn't always happen overnight or on a large scale. Gen Z took the initiative. We should all join in demand for all. And then KODJ podcast says it's World Day of Social Justice. So yes, like we said, and I think who mentioned it? Was it Mariam? Was it Annet who said just because things are quiet doesn't mean nothing is happening? I like to ask the question on how people can sustain momentum based off of what Latif has just said, because people are now aware. I think June 25th shook the status quo to realize I may have power, but I don't have all the power. But then that kind of pattern of fatigue tends to set in. I wish there's a way that society at large could be educated on the tools on how to sustain momentum, so that even when you wake up and you say, another day to push back, how do people sustain momentum? How can people do that? What do they need to say to themselves?
I think at this particular moment, hope is really critical. And hope, to me, would mean looking at the journey that we've come as a nation, we've come as a people, and even in the areas of interest. That keeps you going because there are strides that have been made already. For instance, this finance bill, I think, for me, I keep pointing to it. We saw the rejection of the bill finally. Isn't that big enough? Isn't that change enough to keep us going, even in the different spheres of this particular struggle? Yeah, we have seen, for instance, the new funding model, what happened in court, you know, and now we have reverted to the older model. What does that mean? It's a reprieve for those ones that in the low-income cadre that are seeking this right to education. So for me, the wins, the small wins, much as we are having regression of the same, I think that should be a starting point that should keep us going. I know for sure times have changed to the level that we are seeing very many steps in terms of getting us back from the gains that we already have as a nation, but that should not deter. For me, I think most importantly is to look at the wins that we have already gotten as a people, which is very, very powerful, and also the understanding, and I'll go back to what Latif had mentioned, sovereign power belongs to the people under Article 1 of the Constitution. So also knowing that power and the fact that it was able to bring about change, and the fact that much as the Constitution says that this power can be delegated, we do not have representatives at the moment. So we are our own representative. That alone should be motivation enough that I can represent myself and be able to achieve the change that I so much desire. So there's no direct answer to that particular question, but I know for sure as Kenyans and also living in the technology times, the times that we have young energy, the Gen Zs, I mean, it's time to be creative and ask ourselves, how do we keep ourselves going in this particular struggle? But I think even as we continue with this conversation, you mentioned or you had asked about the avenues. So I would want to point us to the public finance management system in this country. And when you talk about spaces, the government or the public finance frameworks have provided us those avenues to which we are able to engage with this conversation. And so as we talk about social justice today and seek to address or combat some of these injustices, there are platforms. And many a times, bad governance and even human rights violation results from poor management of our resources. And it starts with our structures and architect. And that's why it's important that the avenues that are provided for are also leveraged on by the public to ensure that they are pushing that those socio-economic rights are also realized. A good example will be the taxation system. So we see a punitive finance bill, for instance. We may want to ask ourselves, what's the reasoning behind it? What is the political reasoning behind it? You know, then you realize that we have this pyramid here where we have at the bottom of the pyramid the majority of us look at issues to do with income tax and also VAT, which contributes largely on revenues in this country. It's contributed by the people at the bottom of the pyramid. But then we have people up there who are few in number, but they're the wealthiest. But when it comes to paying their fair share of revenues or fair share of taxes, that's not happening. And you see that the architect of taxing in the system is one that burdens the people in the low income cadre as opposed to those ones that are up. So that alone is an injustice. And perhaps we may start asking ourselves, how do we ensure that this inequality conversation is brought to the fore beyond just looking at the different proposals, but the reasoning behind it, the political reasoning behind it that is meant to enable the high end at the expense of those in the low income cadre, who are the people that are struggling with access to services like SHA. And for instance, you look at things like SHA and realize that the end goal is to privatize it, because not many of us will be able to access these services. What happens? It will give room to the emerging of private health care provisions in the country. So the government is therefore not doing its job, yet we are at the bottom of the pyramid paying high taxes. So I think that conversation is critical.
Just opinion that, because that thread is one we definitely have to pull on. We have to take a break, but I do agree we do need to pull on, especially that inequality thread. But there's something from Matthew Ndumbi on YouTube. It says, civic education is essential. Kenyans become disengaged from politics due to disillusionment. Educating citizens about their rights, governance structures, and ways to influence policy is definitely a big part of it. And I think we'll also talk about civic education in just a little bit. Gladys Muli is asking, do we have social justice? That's such a broad question. It's also her birthday today, so happy birthday, Gladys. We'll be back in a little bit. We have to take a short break. But when we come, let's pull that thread. Inequality, income inequality, coming down to social justice. Is it accidental or systemic? We'll be back in a bit.
You can now get Showmax Premier League Mobile plus 3 gigs of data for only 450 shillings. Just dial *544*37#. Only with Showmax and Safaricom. T's and C's apply.
Mahadhi ya kusisimua na yenye mvuto. Kutoka mashinani hadi mijini.
Zaidi ya madaktari 200 wameweza kuanza mgomo wao rasmi.
Serikali ya kaunti inaendeleza miundombinu kuhakikisha kuwa maji inapatikana kwa urahisi.
Ni chimbuko la habari zinazokuhusu wewe.
Kupata ID, sisi tulikuwa kama alias ambaye wamekuwa discriminated.
Michebebe is very nutritious, very chlorophyllous, very delicious, but less malicious.
Bila chuku, bila upendeleo. Taarifa halisi na asilia kutoka kwa wananchi kwa ajili ya wananchi.
Ndilo kero la taka ambao umeshuhudiwa katika mji huu wa matunda.
Kama serikali hawajachukua hiyo hatua, sisi wa Orma tutachukua hatua.
NTV Mashinani. Kila siku ya wiki saa 12:30 jioni hadi saa 1 jioni.
So these disruptions will likely be on hyper-personalization, decentralization, and what I would call real-time interactive media. So hyper-personalization from the point of delivering content that is relevant to you based off your reading habits, your digital habits, your demographics, and so on and so forth. Decentralization from a point of leveraging on blockchain technology to drive trust and credibility of news items or of content within the digital space. And when it comes to interactive media, we're probably looking at AI-powered news discussions with real-time audience engagement. So those are the disruptions I see.
Ekari 300 mtazamaji imepandwa mahindi.
This one is for the short rain in this area of Ukambani.
Tunastahili kupanda katika mchanga ambao una range from pH ya 6.5 to 7.5.
Ili ni kuhakikisha kwamba tuko Ukambani, hapa si Kitale. Mchanga wake mchanga mwekundu.
We have what land. It's only that we need to put the skills that we have into use.
Hustle is survival.
When a loved one's lost.
Catch these exciting shows only on Maisha Magic Plus on DSTV channel 163 and GoTV channel 3.
What's up nation, naitwa Bishi, ni Korongo. I'm fixing the nation kwa Watchdog Society.
What's up nation, the name is Shoshode Kapo, Rumba artist. Thanks for fixing the nation and patching it up. Because corruption in Kenya is riding on steroids with a filthy few steering its course.
Hey, what's up nation? This is Alois Odur Baraza. I'm fixing the nation by advocating for the boy-child rights.
Good morning. My name is Jacqueline Koech from Elgeyo Marakwet County. I'm fixing the nation by championing on matters governance, especially on matters budgeting, and a great champion also on issues SRHR and matters across gender-based violence. By fixing the nation, we are fixing the society.
Nation. I'm just so happy because the gentleman, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but the gentleman who's fixing the nation by championing for rights of the boy child.
I'm with him.
So, sorry?
I'm with him.
You're with him, yes, 100%.
We all are.
I just wanted to give him props.
I didn't say you were.
He's like, why are you getting
calm
offensive?
down. Easy.
Mariam, as you were saying.
I just wanted to give him props because he didn't come and he didn't wait for International Women's Day or something else to come and say, why are they giving, he just said, niko na shida and I'm fixing it, right? I'm championing the rights of the boy child and I love that. But if you want to send us your WhatsApp Nation, 0112 500 400. 0112 500 400. Phone in landscape, say hi, my name is Mariam and I am championing the rights of the boy child because na. And of course, niko hapa wherever you are. Ama, my name is Mariam and I was making a nice breakfast, but all the eggs just on the ground. And now we're back to square one. Let's fix this nation one conversation at a time.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now you can do it with 400 minutes. 400 minutes is how many with the smarter bundle? That's like 6 hours.
Friend,
that's a lot of hours. Actually, it's more than 6 hours. Yeah. But
it's a long.
Can you speak for 400 minutes in
a month?
Remember, you're the one who said malavas. You said it, you called it. It's possible.
People can actually do that. You
Right.
know, you actually get on a call and you speak until you've been on a call for 2 hours. Hey, that's too long. But yeah, with the new Airtel Smarter Bundles, it sorts you out. Just 1,000 bob. What do you get?
You get, first of all, this 400 minutes that Janet is talking
First,
about.
30 GB of
You
data.
want to start with the data? Okay, 30
GB of data. So you can, just record your updations and send every day, right?
That's right.
And then how long can you talk in a month?
You can talk for 400 minutes to any network.
Wow.
Any network. But Airtel to Airtel, 3,000 minutes. Do the math.
As in Airtel to Airtel is free. Let's just call it. What we're just saying is for just 1,000 bob, you're buying data.
That's it. You have TikToked, you have talked. Fantastic. You also get Airtel money, get 100% of your bank to wallet transaction fee back as airtime. So whenever you do bank to your wallet, your Airtel wallet, that transaction fee comes back to you as airtime. So again, it's basically free.
Yep.
That's what we're saying.
Yep.
And
just
not only is it free, you get to use it as airtime.
How you get there, dial *544# on your Airtel line, then choose option 0, and then it'll bring you 2 other options. Choose 1 to buy once or 2 to auto-renew. Yep. So 1, you buy once. 2, it'll automatically be renewing at the end of the month. 1,000 bob goes, and you get all this. Just *544#. Our conversation on World Social Justice Day continues, and Annet Nerima from the Kenya Human Rights Commission is our guest, right? And we're asking ourselves, so how do citizens get engaged and engaged more? How do we carry on the conversation around social justice from whatever angles, from everywhere? And as we were going to the break, we were asking, are the platforms changing for people to engage on social justice? You see, people like you, Nerima, you have chosen this to be your career, and this is the job that you do. You wake up in the morning, you report to work to deal with matters of justice and rights. There are people who always think, okay, so kuna watu wa civil society, I am an activist, hiyo ni kazi yao. How do you make me do the vigilance on social justice?
Good. One word, conscientize. Because it's basically making people to understand what is in it for them. So this is my job, fine, but for you, you need to push so that you're also able to enjoy what is in it for you, so that you can enjoy that right to education, that good health, access water and sanitation. So make people understand, make it relatable to their day-to-day needs. That's powerful. And like before, when we were talking about civic education, I think we've moved from the civic education conversation because nobody doesn't know their rights. They do. But the question is the applicability of these rights. Why should I care about the rights? You should care because it has an effect on your day-to-day life. So as human rights advocates and champions, we have now gone a notch higher to just ensure that we are conscientizing the citizens to understand why it's important to engage, because it has a direct effect. For instance, when it comes to election, why is it important for you to elect a leader with integrity? Yeah, a leader with integrity would not allow for abductions, for instance. A leader with integrity would ensure that they allocate adequate resources towards development, because you are a taxpayer. So if they don't, they are robbing you. So those conversations, so that when somebody wakes up in 2027, for instance, they are going to the ballot to ensure that they are bringing in somebody whose integrity would mean that all the aspects of their lives are above par or meet their expectations. For instance, this public participation aspect. I mean, previously, or I would say 5 years ago, we used to just say public participation, but it used to happen superficially, where duty bearers would come into a room with these voluminous documents, give them to you, share with you, and expect you to review them, yet you are not an expert, but also give meaningful input into it. Isn't that a lie? You know? But now, because people are aware, just don't come to us in the morning with this. Give us 2 weeks to review these documents. Yeah, and that's where people like us would come in as the experts now to review, break it down to palatable levels where somebody is able to get the information and act. And that's what we saw with the finance bill. We were able to break it down in the first instance, and before you know it, people started understanding what is it, what is this? This is going to affect me directly. It's going to rob me of my hard-earned money. And so they were able to go out to the streets. So times are changing, and as I've said, we are living in times where we need to be creative, all of us, to just be able to fight for what is in need for us. When it comes to taxation, we just don't accept to pay taxes. We're asking, what is in it for me? As I pay these taxes, what's my share? Because previously, we have been paying taxes, but we don't care where it goes, how they share, what share, the ratios, how will they be happening. But right now we are saying, number one, as I pay taxes, 30%, Maze, give it to me. That's what we are saying, and that's why I would give an example of this 30% thing, because the law says that at least 30% of the revenues, both at national level and at county level, should go towards development. But because it says at least, and there are no consequences if national government or county government does not adhere to that, what we've ended up seeing is that they'll pretend in terms of allocation and approve, and you can see the at least 30. Because when you say at least, it means you can go to at least even 40, add it to 40. But most of them have standardized it to the 30. Go to approval, but when it comes to execution, that is where we are robbed. Yeah? So money goes towards repayment of debt, money goes towards salaries, and nothing is left for development. And you'd see when you do a trend analysis of the past 3 financial years, we are at a 1-digit low, yeah, which is wrong, because if it says at least 30, where is our share? Yet we are the biggest taxpayers.
Very good question. I was trying to put it in perspective. Sometimes we can be removed from conversations around social justice because we don't see how they directly affect us. I'm Mercy. I'm on my first job. I have black tax. I have my home, my own personal home.
You have to start buying sufurias.
Yeah,
it's your first job, it's your first salary.
Literally.
You're starting everything. Nunua mattress, nunua sufuria, nunua jiko.
Na bado ni
tuma pesa home.
Nyumbani, sorry. It's a lot. It's a lot. Draw that thread from, whether it's lack of financial inclusion, income inequality, all of that, to social justice. Because I'll be like, you know, Nerima, I hear you, lakini mimi niko na shida zangu pressing right now. And they're a bit more urgent.
My priorities are elsewhere at present.
Yeah, they're a bit more urgent than social justice issues.
Just back to my previous conversation. So connecting this bit, and that's why I've said, so you are getting 100% of hard-earned money. 35% is going towards paying taxes.
Yep. Yeah.
But when you pay taxes, what are you promised?
Services.
Services, yeah.
You're promised services. Sasa, you then need to follow your taxes. Yeah, because it's the taxes that will then translate into revenues. When it translates into revenues and the government begins sharing this cake, it will start with the paying of debts, because debt is an discretionary expenditure. So it's a fast charge. Pay it before you do anything else. But look at our debt, the percentage of revenues that we pay towards debt. As of June 2024, it stood at 69%. 69.9 something, so basically 70%. So out of 100, 70 has gone towards repayment of debt.
Yeah.
How much are we left with? 30. Look at our wage bill. It's at 40.
It's
45.
Yep.
It's over 40, which is also against the law because the law said it should not exceed 35%. It means
pesa yote inaenda huko.
pesa yote imeshaenda.
Either deni ama wages.
Exactly. So there's nothing. So much as the taxes are being still hiked, there's nothing in it for us.
So what do you want this girl to do?
So what should
because
this girl do?
Because she's trying to figure out, so this small job, I've started this job, I'm earning this salary, I'm trying to balance all these things. I'm adulting. I'm just been thrust into adulthood.
Yeah. So you're saying, what can she do? Like, where is her bandwidth to participate in social justice?
Yeah.
Is that
Or how does she participate?
Where
Okay,
does she
Sawa,
find?
I want to do all those things that Nerima is saying. It's okay. But how, man? I have
And also,
to, I have
give
too
her a
many
little bit
balls in
of
the
why,
air.
because she's struggling to see.
Yes.
Genuinely.
In a newswaje.
And I want the sufurias, like Eric was saying. I have to send the money back home. I also want the new outfit. Mambo ni mengi.
But you can still integrate it, right? I don't know. Sorry, I'm here say in terms integrating it starts with just low-hanging fruit, where you are with what you have. I think that needs to be the new thing that's inculcated because people feel like I need to go and protest. And yes, while we encourage it, I remember during that time I had friends who were saying, now me, I'm at the office. What can I do? And I was saying, you can share. You can have the conversation.
Amplify.
You can amplify. Starting with amplifying is just, it's retweeting what Mariam said.
Yeah.
You've amplified. It's having a conversation at home later that evening with your child or partner and saying, have you followed? Okay. It's because that doesn't expand your bandwidth too much. But what it does is it makes you conscious, because I think not integrating awareness or social justice is what has brought us almost to our knees, because for a long time everybody feels that way. Not that it's invalid. Like, I have so much going on and a job, maybe I need to send this back home and everything. It doesn't discount the fact that you can, number one, be aware, keep the awareness around you, whether it means you're tuning into Fixing the Nation. See what I did there?
Wink, wink.
You're listening, you're watching, maybe an hour to work. And then the next day you're tuning into something else. I think leaning into awareness, at the end of the day, what it starts to do is it starts to make you say, where is this whole conversation pinching me? Right. It's pinching me because I would have wanted 4 sufurias, I can afford 3. Why? Because my tax is going somewhere. Why? And before you know it, you're moving closer to saying, you're moving closer to participating.
All right.
I don't know,
but and you pulled on the thread that she talked about. It's true. Yeah, it's follow the money, follow the why, follow the and then you become more conscious, and inevitably, I think you'll find yourself there.
You'll find space.
Yes, you'll find space when you realize that you have to create the space actually, because it is your life on the line, quite literally.
Right.
So the life that you're fighting so hard to live in, this is how this is directly affecting it, right?
Exactly.
Your quality of life is low. Why?
Yeah, and even before Nerima comes back, I'd also be interested to hear your thoughts. It's also holding space for radical self-love. Now, I know that sounds very strange in the bigger scope of things.
Holding space for radical self-love.
Radical self-love, okay.
Who said that?
That's a good one.
Good girl, Jana.
Because social justice advocates and activists, and I don't know whether Nerima can speak to this. I've called you Nerima. It's Annet. It's okay.
Nerima.
I went to the other Wako. Started burning out. So what started happening, I think, the last 2 years or so, is they also started demanding some space to decompress. I think that is one of the solutions to sustaining momentum, is also sometimes recognizing I need to unplug for 2 days. I know the world is relying on me. I know the moment I walk out this door as a social justice advocate or warrior, this person needs something for me. I have to file a report for this person. This child, I need to find the parent. But I think the thing that we miss out on all this, again, going to our girl for sufurias and I'm starting my job and I'm driving, is it's okay to find that balance, because you also can't crash and burn. You still need to sustain that momentum. And I don't know that we talk enough about that radical self-love of saying, I'm going to unplug for a bit.
For a little bit.
It's related, I promise, I think.
Yeah.
But yes.
That's a conversation that is needed now more than ever, for sure. But back to that conversation, I think there's power in information. There's power in people gaining knowledge. And I think this also has a direct bearing in terms of sustainability and continuity of pursuit for justice, because as days go by, we continue to unlock different avenues or loopholes to some of the injustices that we experience in the country. And for instance, I was just talking about issues to do with taxation, and you realize that there are solutions. So much as you're bringing in this punitive finance bill, I will just not review it from a socio-economic point of view, but I would start asking myself, when you talk about wealth taxation, how about the wealthy also pay their fair share? That way you are able to expand your tax base. It means you do not have to come for me every day because I'm the easy target. Yeah, and it means that you'll have more resources to be able to do what? To provide the services that we so much need as Kenyans. So the power of information, it also allows us, when I speak with authority, and I can be able to go to spaces, whether in invited spaces and uninvited spaces, to just pour that knowledge, so that if anybody else is really interested, they're also able to push from that angle. Yeah, so I think information and the current times that we are living in is really powerful, is really key, and that is one of the ways that sustains also this movement and the quest for social justice.
Mariam, please shake her hand.
Because
thank you, Nerima.
My people perish for lack of knowledge. And that's why we're here every morning. So we can just all together build on our knowledge base. You know, we now hear from you, we get to learn something. As this is how we fix. We fix by having knowledge and then seeing how does that knowledge apply to me? How do I apply that knowledge into the situation that I am in? And I think moving forward, even just thinking, how do I participate? I think there are different levels of engagement, like we'll agree. Nerima's level of engagement is higher. You know, if we just create a quadrant, she's high interest, high engagement, high everything, because this is what she wakes up to do every day. But how do we support Nerima? Right? How does this girl of ours support Nerima in the work that she's doing? Just by doing the small bit that she can at home. And I think this country, we pride ourselves in being, we are technologically savvy. We've got guys who are just software engineers who create things like this, and they develop things. So how can we use open source software, for example, to help in creating awareness? We saw last year, people were creating content around the finance bill and sharing it. There are people who created, you know, just tracking promises. You're just tracking promises. Somebody looking back and saying, this is what so-and-so said over the last. So if you click any part of their head, which they've put together, it'll bring you a tweet that they have tweeted before.
Translating into local
languages. We have all this ability. How can that also be used in just making sure that there's an open source platform where you come in and you can get information, you can report, you can engage. So this also just makes you know that you're participating and you're supporting. There are people, even at our community level, who are willing to do a bit more. If you go to the social justice centers, you find people who are willing to just do a bit more. They are willing to wake up and spend some hours and some time on community service. How can we support those people? Yes, you've reported to work. Can you send 10 bob? And that 10 bob goes into facilitating this person to do their work. Can you participate in just by, as you're driving around, you're recording, you're taking pictures, you're sending the pictures. This is a wealth of information that we're building. I think we have a lot that we can do. Only if we realize, number one, we are the sovereign. And it shall not be coming from somebody else. It shall be coming from us to them.
Right. Very much to what we are with the people. Again, Matthews Nubi, despite a busy schedule, engage in digital activism by sharing awareness campaigns, petitions, and fundraisers on social media to support social justice causes, as Kenya has a vibrant online community. Yep, absolutely supporting them. And just making sure that they're able to extend that justice, that social justice, to the next person. Annet, the theme is empowering inclusion, bridging gaps for social justice. That's the theme for this year's World Social Justice Day. Is there any special commemoration or event taking place that people can follow up on today?
Yes. Today, particularly, we have partnered with the social justice centers in Mukuru, and from here I'll be headed there. And the past 2 weeks they have spent doing government socio-economic audit survey to just gauge the status of service delivery in this country, and particularly on those people in the informal settlements. How are they faring? Are they accessing the services, the affordability, the accessibility, the quality of those services, but also the status of social justice in their community? And they've got findings that are really appalling, and really today we are hoping, as we commemorate, we are going to be speaking to duty bearers to really do that which is necessary, but also us, because we also have a role as citizens. What are we going to be doing moving forward to ensure that we address the social injustices in the community?
We hope you can publish that after, and just we can take a look at it and then track, and then now plug in and scale that and, play our part. But thank you for sharing the conversation with us.
Thank you.
Maybe as we leave, one small thing we can all do today.
Yeah, I think we need to, we can tweet about the social injustices, because as I said, we are not going to sit here and say we are marking, we are celebrating. There's so much to be done. So please, I think
tweet, post, Insta, social media, easiest one.
Yeah.
Kila mahali.